Hi, I'm Pieter. I've been coming to X Church for about 4 years, right before COVID started, and then been coming every weekend. In 2016, I moved to the US from Belgium, always raised Catholic. We have a daughter, a 6 year old, Sophie. I was raised Catholic, and I was never allowed to ask questions, and that didn't work with my brain. We were driving to my wife's parents' house, and I don't know what came up in me, but at a certain moment in the car, I told my wife, "Hey, I think we gotta go to church." We asked around, and we ended up in a pretty big, pretty large Methodist church, and I was allowed to ask questions, which was weird to me. I was never allowed to do that. Although I was allowed to ask questions, I still didn't feel connected to Jesus. I wasn't connected to God yet. I was there for my wife and for my daughter. We started looking for a church, and we said, okay, we like the Methodist church, so let's find a Methodist church. And we did a Methodist church here in Pickerington, and it didn't feel the same. The first time when we got to the old building in Litopolis, we drove up, and you had these friendly people in the parking lot guiding us to the parking, and you had a special spot where you could park your car because you were a VIP guest, and we weren't sure, but okay, we parked there, and then we walked in, and everybody greeted us, and that by itself is phenomenal too. And I walked out a little early because I had to go to the bathroom, and while I was walking out, and if you know the Litopolis, Pastor Tim always came from downstairs up the stairs, and the bathroom was downstairs, so we met on. He asked me, "I have never seen you here," and I told him, "Yeah, I'm here. My wife is still inside," and I told him, but I don't know about that Jesus thing yet. And he's like, "Oh, that's fine." So I was completely bedazzled, really, that he said, "That's fine, you don't have to believe." But he replied with one thing, and he said, "But I don't know if it's not going to stay that way." Me and my wife decided that we needed to follow the next steps and decided to serve. The ability to ask questions was big to me. A lot of times Pastor Tim actually answers my questions before I even ask him. He's not afraid to come on stage and be controversial and just say, "Hey, let's look at science versus the Bible." When he did that sermon, I was like, "Oh, he's going to take that on?" I have these questions for years, right? And I was never allowed to ask him, and I can ask him. It relieves you. When I saw Tim the first time, when he told me that it's okay, you don't have to, the Jesus thing, it's okay. And it always stuck to me because one of the things he repeats a lot of times is like, you don't have to believe to belong. I didn't believe when I started coming to X Church, but I do now. I felt as welcome then as I do now. In worst case, you have a community around you that will support you. It cannot be worse than not coming at all. If I would have a conversation with myself in 2019, I would 100% tell myself, don't give up, keep coming. Listen to the people around you and ask questions. Ask him. Don't be afraid. They will be answered. And maybe not immediately, but they will be answered.